He is an American hero, an astronaut who flew in space 4 times and set the record for the number of days an American astronaut spent in space. We're talking 520. And now Scott Kelly is sharing his story, and it's the focus of today's Wednesday's read. And we have Gwen Reyes from FreshFiction.com joining us. Thanks for being here, Gwen.
Thanks, Alicia.
So, lots of interesting stuff that we're talking about in this book, and I believe it starts off with the end of that big stretch that he had in space, right?
He did from 2015 to 2016. He did relatively a year in space, 340 days. It was record-setting. It was the longest time any astronaut had spent that much time, consecutive days in space. And it picks up right there while he's having dinner with his family in Houston, and he can barely walk because his bones and his muscles had atrophied. Even though he was doing his exercise up there, the gravitational pull was so different here because there's no gravity up there. So he had to relearn how to walk, and that's kind of where he starts, and he goes back from there.
And very unique to him, he has a twin brother we know who was on planet Earth while he was up there.
Exactly.
Which makes for a great, basis of comparison, right?
Exactly, and that was one of the big things that they wanted to do with Mark and Scott Kelly, was they wanted to compare. So Mark stayed here to be with his wife and his family. He's also retired, and Scott went up to space, and they wanted to compare what it was like for a twin who have, similar DNA, similar everything, to compare, go back and forth. And that was the biggest thing. And they're still kind of, because it's been not even a whole year since he's been back, and they're still trying to find out what all the data is. Yep.
Interesting. So the other thing is, I would imagine you learn a lot when you're in space for that long, and apparently space even smells differently.
Yes, and that was the fun thing in here. Scott actually talks about what space smells like, and spoiler alert, it smells like sparklers on the 4th of July. That's how he described it.
Sparklers on the 4th of July. So a little smoky action
there. A little smoky, a little fiery. So I was like, well, I don't know if you're supposed to light fire in space, but that was an interesting comparison, I thought.
Wow. And then the food. He has to talk about the food.
He does talk about the food, and he talks about one of the things that he learned was that dill actually helps astronauts from having flatulence.
As in farting.
As in farting.
I love how she tried to get that in there.
I know. I was like, this is my favorite little tidbit. What it smells like in space and how you keep from having space farts. Those are my 2 favorite things. Dill and sparklers.
So would be just like putting it on everything? I mean,
I would hope so, right?
You're farting like
I would never even think about that. Well, there he is.
You got to see the face Jason's making right now. Interesting stuff. So do you think that, I mean, it sounds like it's a really funny read. You just learn a lot of interesting facts, but also you're learning a lot about space and science.
You are, and there's really a great amount of stuff in here for anyone who's kind of a space nerd, but then who also has no idea about space and had absolutely no interest in it. So that's the kind of the thing. I've always been really into space, but I think that the novice is really going to enjoy this book as well.
A little bit of everything for everyone there. Thank you so much, Gwen,
for
talking about this interesting book. You can definitely pick it up if you have a minute. And when we come back, we're talking about the weather because, boy, we've been enjoying